Hey, this is Kevin with Consumer Reports, and I'm down here at Clearwater Lake, and I'm reviewing or doing my range testing on Ruger's new precision rimfire rifle, and you can see it right here. And so as far as how I'm set up right now, I figured I'd go ahead and just try shooting off the bipod. I'll see how that goes, and a backrest. I've got the chronograph set up at about 10 feet, and I'm going to be shooting targets at 50 yards, which you can see down there. The ammo that I selected here is a variety of different types. I've got several different Ely here that I want to give a try, and we'll see how they do in the rifle. Some CCI standard velocity, some Aguila over here, Thunderbolts, Golden Bullets, some of the Federal here, and some Winchester there. And you know, I may not get chronograph data on everything, or I might. I'm not 100% sure. I'm just going to have to see how things go. The optic I decided to put on here was a Burris MTAC 4.5 to 14 by 42, and it's a mil configuration. And I've got the caps off right now, or the covers off, and so I've got it installed here on top of some very value-oriented UTG quick release mounts or rings right here. I've used these, actually they're becoming one of my favorite cheap mounts, but I've used these several times, and you may have seen them in other reviews. I also use these in that Ruger PC carbine review, and I've been pretty happy with them so far. So that's the configuration that I'm shooting. At the moment, I'm just shooting with the thread protector on the end of the barrel. This is also one of the UTG Picatinny mount bipods. I did have to put a short piece of M-lock rail on the lower portion of the handguard, because the rifle doesn't come configured to allow you to install a bipod. So I had to add this short piece of M-lock rail, and then that's a UTG bipod. Now, while I was getting set up, checking my zero and getting set up there at the bench, I switched over to some CCI standard velocity, which you can see right there, and that's a 5-shot group that measures well under a half an inch. My guess is going to be about maybe 0.35, something like that. So hopefully at the very beginning of this review, that was really the first 5-shot group that I actually gave it a good try on, and was impressed so far. CCI standard velocity. Alright, that's my 5-shot groups with the CCI standard velocity. And so I went in this order: A, B, C, D, E, like that. And if you look at each one of these groups, that's going to be just a hair over a half, maybe a hair over a half. That's going to be about a half. That's going to be under a half right there, and that's going to be just a hair over a half-inch group. And it's just a CCI standard velocity, which, you know, I've come to believe that it shoots pretty good, especially when you consider the value of it. I've got other ammo to shoot, but this is most likely what I'm going to shoot most of in the future, only because I think it's got a lot of value to it. So I'm going to set my turret caps at the setting that we have right here. I kind of went back and forth, tweaked it up 1/10 of a mil there to this point, and then shot this group a little bit high, higher than I would have thought a 1/10 of a mil would have been at this distance. But anyway, so I'm going to take it back down that 1/10 of a mil, and then I'll set the turret caps right there. Now, for this scope right here, the Ruger provides a 30 MOA rail right here mounted to the top of the receiver. In my case, with this particular rifle, the way it worked out, when I mounted it here with these UTG quick release rings, I've got 15 mils of elevation adjustment up and 5 mils of elevation adjustment down. So that range of up elevation adjustment is going to give me the opportunity to be able to dial in a elevation correction out to a little over 300 yards. This is now about my 4th time at the range with the Ruger Precision Rimfire, and I really just wasn't 100% happy with how things for grouping with some of the other ammo. On one of my first range sessions, it's probably the beginning of this video, where I was shooting off of the bipod. I just wasn't happy with some of the strings that I was getting. I was getting some vertical dispersion and it just wasn't happy, so I decided to switch back over to the Rock BR and a rear bag like that, and I'm going to reshoot some of the groups that I previously shot. What's different, I'm messing around kind of looking at this radius rangefinder here that's mounted on the front of the rifle, just to help me understand some of the yardages as I'm sitting here shooting. I've set up multiple targets. I don't know if you can see down there, at about 100 yards, 110 yards, and then further. I've also got other targets down the lake, and at one of my range sessions, I think that one over there, I actually got dialed in on it, and it's 196 yards. Instead of going target by target and showing you the groups, I decided to go ahead and bring all the data home and summarize it into the table here for this Ruger Precision Rimfire rifle. And I want to point out a few things here. Is that this is an accumulation of 48 5-shot groups, and for all of those 48 5-shot groups at 50 yards from a bench, my group average was 0.78 inches. And I shot, as I went through there, I showed on video some of the ammunition. I did shoot the CCI standard velocity suppressed. I added, later on I ended up picking up some CCI green tag and some of the CCI segmented hollow points, the 32 grain stuff that would be more in the hyper velocity realm. The manufacturer specs on that basically say it's going to come in at about 1640 feet per second. In my case, I was coming in about 1561. You know, if I look at all of the data, the way it worked out is that the CCI standard velocity and the CCI standard velocity suppressed came in with 5-shot group averages of 0.42 inches and 0.45 inches at 50 yards. And you know, that's I already mentioned it once, but I've been very happy with CCI standard velocity overall, and I was glad to see that in both cases that it did a really nice job of grouping. I was getting with my suppressor a group point of impact that maybe was about a half an inch higher at 50 yards than without the suppressor. If I kind of look at some more of the ammo in here, the Ely target came in at a group average of about 0.6 inches. The segmented hollow point CCI, that hypervelocity, came in at 0.67 inches, which I was really pleased to see that. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to go through and try to shoot this hypervelocity ammunition at longer ranges. That's the way it worked out. But at the higher velocity of 1561 feet per second, as compared to the standard velocity that was coming in around about 1030 feet per second, I should be able to use my elevation turret to be able to get out to longer distances. I did have like the Winchester Super X 36 grain rounds. My group average on that was about 1.22, which, you know, clearly that's not something that I would shoot through this rifle after seeing how it shot compared to some of the other ammunition. I was a little surprised that the Aguila Super Extra Subsonic came in at 1.05 for a group average. But overall, I was very, very, very pleased with the accuracy potential that you have with this rifle. And as long as you go through and find a round that works well in your rifle, then once you find that, stick with it. Alright, now I'm going to try to get on video shooting a gong over there at 196 yards. Let's see if I can zoom in. You can see it right there in the background down there. So I'm just going to give it a try here, and I mean, I've already done it, and I used the shooter program on my Android phone after I put in my velocity and BC that I looked up, the ballistic coefficient that I looked up off the internet for the 22 long rifle. I'm using the CCI standard velocity, and I'm dialing in 7 mils of elevation. All right, I'm going to see now if I can hit the plate out there, and we'll just give it a few shots here. There we go. There we go again. That's 196 yards, and I've dialed in, like I said earlier, 7 mils. Fortunately, I think that went right over it. Fortunately, the wind's died down just a little bit. There we go, right there. All right, so now I'm going to see if I can go out and maybe hit something further out. That's about 200 yards. I've got another gong further down the lake. I'll have to range it, and we'll just see if I can put a few pieces of lead on that one. So the next target that I'm shooting at, that one was 196. I'm going to go down here, and that one's going to be about 233 is what it's ranging at, which seems about right. So maybe I'll leave it zoomed in on this one this time. I don't know if you can tell. That's a heavy plate. It's a 3/8 AR500 plate, so you won't really be able to see it move very much, but you can hear it, and so I'll give it a try now. There we go, finally. 3 shots. Third one made it. Let's see if I can do another one. Yep, there it is. See if I can get lucky enough and get 3 in a row. It's 9 mils of elevation. There we go, 233 yards with CCI standard velocity. Alright, let me see if I can keep moving on down the lake. Alright, so now I'm going to try 306 yards, and actually I have already done it, and it's about 14.5 mils, and there's a target. Actually there's 2 targets that are down there, a red one and a white one. Typically my targets, I use red for rimfire and white for centerfire, but anyway, I'm dialing in about 14.5 mils. I've hit it once, and so I'm going to just kind of let the video camera run here and see if I can catch a couple of them, couple of hits on video. There we go. See if I can get another one on that while the wind's kind of died down a little bit. There we go. There's 2 in a row. 306 yards, 14.5 mils of elevation adjustment with a CCI standard velocity. Nope. Maybe all I'm going to do is get 2 of them in there, but at least I've shown it can be done. Wow. Nothing. There's a good one on that red plate. You could probably see that one on the video. That red plate's a real thin plate. Try another one. Nope. Those plates are only about 6 inches in diameter, so they're really not that big. And when you start looking at grouping at a 1/2 inch at 50 yards, then There's another good one up. Some of it's just the accuracy of the ammo at that distance. But right now I'm pretty pleased. This is what I wanted to be able to try to do. See if I can get one more. I want to shoot up all my ammo because I'm going to try a little bit further too. Alright, we'll hold off on that. I got a few hits. So anyway, clearly you know that it can be done. The Ruger Precision can be something that you could shoot. Precision rimfire can be something you could shoot out to 300 yards. I just proved it. You really need to go in and figure out what the ammo is that you're going to shoot though. And make sure you've dialed in your rifle. Okay, for the last part of my range test here, I ran out of the CCI standard velocity. So I've just pulled out some Remington Thunderbolts. And I think I've got it dialed in. I ran out of elevation adjustment on the scope here. It's over 15 mils is that I had to dial in. So right now I'm about there. And I'm having to actually use the subtensions in my reticle to hold off. And so I'm going to see if I can go ahead and on that torso that's 412 yards down there, I'm going to see if I can make a couple of hits real quick. There we go. There's another hit. There we go. It's 2 in a row. One of the things that I found while I was out at the range was the 10-round rotary magazine here, and I've got a bunch of them, and I've tried more than just this one, but they don't drop out of the rifle just like the BX-15 or even the BX-25. I'll try to show you here one-handed. I'll just push on that lever. That BX-15 drops right out. I'll go through and slide in this rotary 10-round magazine. You heard it click in place. Alright, so I'll press the lever to release, and it doesn't release. And actually, to release it, I've got to, because it's hard to grab from below just the shape of the mag well and actually pull it out. So for me to get it out, I actually have to push the lever and then push from the top to pop it out. Now the magazine works in there. I mean, it works without issue as far as feeding the rounds in, but it will not drop out on this particular rifle. And I went through and tried to do some comparative, get a comparative understanding of the two, and I don't think it's going to show up on this video. Let me see if I can try this, but maybe it will. If you can see here, the length of this rotary magazine is just a slightly longer, you know, for front to back than it is for the BX-15. Anyway, I did find that during the review, and if more people are having that same issue, you know, leave a comment, and just to let everybody else know it's not just this one rifle that I received. One of my key goals for range testing was clearly to figure out the accuracy of the rifle. But as you just got through seeing in the video showing me shoot at longer distances, the other key goal was to see if I could actually be consistent trying to shoot out to longer ranges, and I had kind of like an internal goal of about 300 yards. And clearly on video I showed you that I could actually hit some targets at 300 yards, and I was extremely pleased with it. And I know there's other platforms out there that aren't like this precision rifle platform that has, you know, the shape and the stock and all that. There's a lot of rifles that can group, and if you put the right optics on it and the right cant on your rail, your top rail, so you can actually reach that far out and dial it in, there's a lot of firearms that can do that. One of the things that I liked about this particular platform, it does mimic that of my full-size Ruger Precision rifle, and it does provide, in my opinion, a good training platform for teaching somebody else to shoot. And just so happens this past weekend I was down at a shooting event with my family, and I sat down and pulled out just a box of 50 rounds of CCI standard velocity and handed it over and sat down and worked with someone, and they became very confident very quick at shooting at longer distances with this rifle. One of the next things that I need to do to really start refining my use of it is to really put some paper targets out at those longer distances to really see where my groups are coming in. Right now I'm trusting the shooter program on my Android phone to determine what my drop values are, and shooting out at steel plates, it feels good to hit those plates, but it's a hard way to truly go through and confirm that you've dialed in the optimum correction for those ranges. So clearly I'm going to spend more time on my own working at this from a bench, maybe with some paper out to further distances, and again I hope that this becomes one of my favorite little training rifles. So far it looks like it's going to do that, and I think anybody out there who's interested in a platform like this should be pleased with the results that you're going to get. Well, that's it for the range testing that I'm going to do here to actually publish out there as far as the review goes. I'll do a lot more range testing on my own, but if you like this review, please like, subscribe, or both, and share with your friends, and I'll try to keep bringing detailed reviews in the future. Thanks.